And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Thursday, April 24th. We have a lot to cover on the show today. Before I get into all that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So we're going to start off the show. So I did do a mock draft last night. So we'll start off. We'll go through the first half of the first round, who I picked for each selection for each team. What needs do the non-playoff teams have to address in this draft? So we'll go over my mock draft. It's not going to be accurate. It's a rough mock draft. And you guys also got to cut me some slack because I also, I'm not an expert on every single prospect in this draft. So, other than like the first three picks and maybe a couple of others, I'm kind of just like, all right, this team needs this position. So that's what I went with. So we'll go through, kind of the first half of the first round in the first segment. Then in the second part of the show, we'll go through the playoff teams. We'll go through the second half of the first round. We'll go through, who I had being selected with the playoff teams from last season. Then, in the third part of the show, we'll go over the games from last night in the NBA, who won the matchups. And then in the fourth part of the show, we'll preview the games tonight, Knicks, Pistons, Grizzlies, and the Thunder. We'll go through all of those as well. Then, in the final part of the show, we'll talk about the New York Mets because they are playing some really good baseball right now. They have the best record in the majors, so we'll kind of go through that as well. So that this is as my camera is really, really bugging out right now, so hopefully it calms down a little bit, because usually it'll kind of subside, but it doesn't seem like it's going to do that. So we're just going to go to the backup option for the time being. I was experiencing some issues before the show, which, is common. And, with this being my last week, of course, we're going to have some issues with the camera. So, but yes, this is the second to last show that I will be hosting here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. Tomorrow is the last day. And tomorrow will basically just be, all takeaways from round one and, maybe talking about what teams still have to address. But let's kind of get into my mock draft, shall we? So like I said, we're going to cover the first half of it, all the non-playoff teams from last season. We'll talk about, who I have going where. But yes, tonight is the draft. We have made it. This is a big deal. This is kind of one of those early signs of, hey, football season is right around the corner, which, well, I shouldn't say it's right around the corner, but we're getting to that point. And listen, I'm excited. I'm nervous. I'm skeptical. I don't know what's going to happen because, obviously I'm trying to focus on my team and, what they're going to end up doing. And that is, the New York Giants. Because, obviously the two picks ahead of them, the Browns and the Titans, that could very well, that does decide what the Giants are ultimately going to do at 3. And, I've said it all along, I would like for the Giants to approach this draft, to approach this pick by taking best player available. And I think the best player available when the Giants ultimately do pick is going to be Abdul Carter. So to kind of go through how I have my mock draft set up. So again, I was doing it last night. The easiest one, unless this could be a smokescreen, and I've said that a couple of times. But I do have Cam Ward going to Tennessee. It seems like the Titans are in love with Cam Ward. And, they're a team that needs a quarterback. And actually, speaking of the Titans, they did add another weapon for their potential rookie quarterback. They added Tyler Lockett. So they bring in a veteran receiver over. So I just wanted to bring that up. But, yeah, Cam Ward I have going to the Titans. So that's the easy one. Then this is where the draft really starts to go. So I do have the Browns taking Travis Hunter. It seems like the way things are trending that's what's going to end up happening. Now, could they take Abdul Carter? Sure. To line him up opposite of Myles Garrett, they could definitely do that. But I think they're looking to add Travis Hunter. And I got him going to Cleveland. And then I have the Giants taking Abdul Carter. They're going to take best player available. At least that's what I'm hoping. And they'll have him line up opposite of Brian Burns and Dexter Lawrence on the inside. And it's going to be interesting because if they do draft Abdul Carter, what does that mean for Kayvon Thibodeau? Does that mean they're going to end up trading him? Because that definitely is a possibility. But you could also look at it and say, hey, you got, a lot of pass rushers on this team, and you want to keep that. But we'll see. But yes, I got the Giants taking Abdul Carter. The Patriots is interesting. The Patriots, I could see them being one of those teams that trades down. If a team wants to jump up to 4, I could see that potentially happening. I could see the Browns I could see, the top 3 picks, well, except the Titans. I could see the Browns and the Giants trading down. I hope they don't. Well, I hope the Giants don't. The Patriots, I could also see it. But I got them taking an offensive lineman, an offensive tackle, Will Campbell, who is arguably the best tackle in this draft out of LSU. Patriots' offensive line was a weakness last year, so I got them taking him at 4. I got Mason Graham from Michigan going to Jacksonville. The Jacksonville could do several different things. You're hearing Ashton Genty could be a possibility. Maybe they trade down. I don't know, but this team has a lot of holes. I feel like they should address other areas besides running back. But yeah, I have him going to Jacksonville. But we'll see. I got it, but I have him going at 5 to the Jaguars. I've said it all along. I have Ashton Genty going to the Raiders. The Raiders want to improve the running back room. Now, if he ends up getting taken, then maybe you see them address another position. Either on the defensive side of the ball, maybe offensive line. Could they trade down? But yeah, the running game for the Raiders was not good last year. And, this is a weapon that they could really use on the offensive side of the ball. So, I have him going at 6. Tyler Warren, I have going to the Jets. I know a lot of people have them taking a tackle. But I have him going at 7 to the Jets. The Jets could use that weapon on that side of the ball. It could be this, another weapon for Justin Fields. If they take a tackle, it's not the worst thing in the world. But that's who I have going to the Jets. And then at 8 is interesting. Okay, I could be wrong with this. Well, I definitely could be wrong with this. But I actually have the Panthers taking Tetairoa McMillan. I feel like the Panthers still need another weapon to add to this offense to help out Bryce Young. I know they're looking at some of the other young receivers. They still have Adam Thielen. But go out and get Bryce Young, arguably the best receiver in this draft, one of the best receivers in this draft. Give him a number 1 receiver. So, that was my way of thinking with that. So, we'll see. But I know some people have edge rusher. That's a possibility. But, again, I just was like, hey, Bryce Young needs a weapon. I haven't put him on anybody's team yet. That's who I have at 8. 9, I got Shedeur Sanders going to the Saints. I know that's been a popular pick for a lot of people now with the Derek Carr news. So, yeah, I got him going at 9, so we'll see what happens. The Bears was interesting. That's another team I could see trading down. I didn't really know what to do here. I feel like if they want to address the running back position, they can maybe address that in the later rounds. I had them taking Malachi Starks at 10, the safety out of Georgia. But I don't know. We'll see what they do there. They could maybe take a tackle to fortify that offensive line. I did have the 49ers taking Will Johnson out of Michigan. With Hufanga leaving in free agency, with Charvarius Ward leaving in free agency, they kind of do need to address the secondary. So I had the 49ers ending up with him. Now, they could maybe address the offensive line. They could maybe address the defensive line. But I had them taking Will Johnson. I had the Cowboys taking a receiver. I think they're taking a playmaker at 12. Right now, I have them taking Emeka Ibuka from Ohio State. They need another receiver outside of CeeDee Lamb. And, whether it's him, whether it's Matthew Golden, who I have being taken later in the first round, that's what I have the Cowboys doing at 12. The Dolphins could do, several different things. Right now I had them taking Armen Membu from Missouri, the tackle. Another guy to help protect Tua on the offensive line. So we'll see what happens there. The Dolphins could do a couple different things. Maybe they take an edge rusher, address the defensive side of the ball. We'll see. I do have the Colts taking a tight end. It seems like that's what they want to do with their first pick. Colston Loveland from Michigan. The Falcons, I have them taking Mike Green from Marshall, an edge rusher. I think he had 17.5 sacks last year, which is really good. I have the Cardinals taking Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, defensive lineman, at 16. At 17, I got the Bengals taking Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. We'll see what happens. But yeah, they need to go defensive heavy in this draft. And then I have the Seahawks taking an edge rusher, Donovan Ezrier-Uraku. I hope that's how you pronounce it, out of Boston College. But I think that's also another team that could address the offensive line. But again, this is just a rough mock draft. So, yeah, but those are all the non-playoff teams from last season. Let me know what you guys think about my mock draft. How accurate do you think it is? You'll probably say, maybe the first 3 picks are accurate, and then you're wrong on every single one after that. But, yeah, I looking back, I could see the Seahawks taking a tackle because I do have several teams taking tackles later on, the playoff teams. So, but, yeah, that's how my first round goes. Let me know what you guys think about it, or the first half of the first round. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. So we're going to take our first break, and then when we come back, we will take a look at the second half of my mock draft. We'll talk about every playoff team from last season's needs and what they could potentially do. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to take a look at the second half of my mock draft. What each playoff team from last season could potentially address in the first round. What position could they potentially address in the first round? So let's go through it. So we left off with the Seahawks. I had them taking an edge rusher. I think, looking back, they'll probably maybe take an offensive lineman. I think that's probably what they should do. But now we're at the playoff team. So the Buccaneers, and actually I'm not the only one that had this, and there's other people that have done mock drafts that have had this player going to the Bucs, and that is them taking Jahad Campbell out of Alabama, linebacker. I feel like the Bucs, that's a team that I could see going with a defensive player. I feel like their offense is fine. I know some people I had them maybe taking a receiver. They're fine at receiver. They're fine at running back. They got Rashad White. They got Bucky Irving. Receiver Mike Evans. They re-signed Chris Godwin. Maybe if they didn't re-sign Chris Godwin, but they brought him back, and they're expecting Jalen McMillan to continue to produce for them. So I think linebacker wouldn't be bad. They brought back Levante David. You pair him up with an experienced linebacker, and they did sign Hassan Reddick, to be that edge rusher presence. So, we'll see. Maybe they address a position in the secondary. Who knows? But that's what I see. I do see the Bucs going with a defensive player with their first selection. At 20, I do have the Broncos taking a running back, Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina. He's one of the top running back prospects in this draft. The Broncos, they did like to run the football last year, but it's just they didn't have that consistent option, that 3-down back, that bell cow. They need that. And, this is another weapon to add to that offense to go along with their young quarterback as they try to bring him along and take that next step in Bo Nix. Obviously they gave Cortland Sutton an extension. They brought in Evan Ingram. So the offense is going to be better. And Marvin Mims, he played really well towards the end of last season. Troy Franklin is coming along. He had that touchdown in the playoff game against the Bills. So they got some weapons, but they need to address the running game at some point in this draft. Maybe they do it later. Right now, I have Omarion Hampton going to the Broncos. So now we get to the Steelers. I don't really like who I put for the Steelers because I was like, well, the Steelers still need a quarterback, and I already had Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward taken off the board. I think maybe they address the quarterback position later in the draft. And obviously we're still waiting on Aaron Rodgers. What is he going to what is he going to do? I did have the Steelers taking Jackson Dart. I don't feel great about it. I think they might address another position. Now, what they could address, maybe could they address running back similar to the Broncos? Or could they wait? Do they take maybe someone on the defensive side of the ball? They got a lot of young guys on the offensive line that they hope can take that next step, so maybe they don't address that. But I'm curious to see what the Steelers do. Could they be a team that potentially trades up to try? And if Shedeur Sanders slides, could they trade up? I know we've had that conversation, a few times in our production meeting, but I don't know if they're going to trade that far up. If he slides past the Saints, then maybe you could see that. But I got right now I got Jackson Dart penciled in for the Steelers, but he could be taken in the second round. So, but yeah, don't feel great about that. I do have the Chargers taking a receiver. They're another team that maybe could take a running back, or maybe they wait on it. I had them taking Matthew Golden out of Texas. The receiving core is still, a work in progress. You got Ladd McConkey. They did bring back Mike Williams. Quinn Johnston had a better sophomore season than he did his rookie season. But, drops are still a problem. They still need more weapons on that side of the ball. And that's kind of my way of thinking. At some maybe not in the first round, but I do see the Chargers taking a receiver and then maybe taking a running back at some point, and then we'll see what they do at the other positions. Maybe they take a pass rusher at some point, because they did lose Joey Bosa. They brought back Khalil Mack, but you still need to address that position. I mean, maybe Kenneth Grant doesn't go to Cincinnati, like I haven't projected, and maybe the Chargers look to take a Michigan player. I didn't even think of that. I should have had them taking a Michigan player. I mean, I wasn't going to have them take a receiver out of Michigan, but yeah, so we'll see. The Packers I have taking Luther Burden III, another receiver. They typically don't take receivers in the first round, but that could be a position that they address at some point. Maybe they look to add to the defensive side of the ball, maybe offensive line. We'll see. But that's who I had going to the Packers. I had the Vikings addressing the secondary. I had them taking cornerback Jahdae Barron from Texas. They addressed the defensive line in free agency. They brought in a couple of guys. They brought in Jonathan Allen. They brought in Javon Hargrave last year. I mean, they brought in Jonathan Grenard. And they also drafted Dallas Turner. So, yeah, I think they're fine there. I mean, maybe they take a linebacker, but corner could be something they address. Maybe offensive line on the interior. Actually, I think they did address the offensive line in the offseason. So we'll see, but that's who I have going there. I had the Texans taking Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. They traded Laramie Tunsil. Maybe at some point, they're looking to take a lineman. Now, I did see something last night that they're looking to try to trade up and maybe take a receiver. Possibly, because they are going to need another one because, obviously Tank Dell is going to be out for the whole year, and, they didn't bring back Stephon Diggs. They did bring in Christian Kirk, but they're going to need another weapon on that side of the ball. But, look, the offensive line was not good last year, so they're going to have to address that at some point. So I had, them taking a tackle. I also had the Rams taking a tackle, Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. The offensive line at the beginning of the year was banged up, and they obviously want to keep Matthew Stafford upright. Now, could they address, the secondary maybe? I saw that maybe they're potentially open to a reunion with Jalen Ramsey, or maybe trading for him again. We'll see. But offensive line, I think, is very important for this team because you want to keep Matthew Stafford healthy. They got two number one receivers in Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams now. Obviously, they did have two number ones with Cooper Kupp, but I think Devontae Adams at this point is better. Running game, I mean, maybe they address that at some point in the draft later, take one for depth. But, they're set with Kyron Williams. Tyler Higbee's back. So offensive line, maybe, linebacker, corner, safety, maybe you see something like that. But, yeah, that's who I had going to the Rams. And then with the Ravens, I had them taking a corner, Trey Amos out of Ole Miss. Secondary was a weakness of the team last year, although it did get better as, the year went on. But, they were very good at stopping the run. It's just, they were one of the teams that just were poor against the pass. So that was my way of thinking. I had the Lions taking Jalen Walker, linebacker out of Georgia. I think they go defense with their first pick. Whether it's edge rusher, linebacker, corner, safety. Actually, I mean, they might be fine. Maybe in the secondary they could draft a corner, but yeah, I see them going defense with their first pick. Washington, I think they could do several different things. Offensive line. Maybe you add another weapon. I think you could see them. I think they'll add, maybe a receiver at some point. But yeah, I had them taking a James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, an edge rusher. I had the Bills taking an edge rusher, but they could be a team that takes, a corner, address the defensive side of the ball. Nick Scourton out of Texas A&M. Again, I apologize if I mispronounced some of these names, but I had the Bills taking an edge rusher. I have the Chiefs taking a tackle, Josh Connery Jr. I know they signed Jalen Moore in the offseason, who's the backup to Trent Williams. But, I think offensive line is something they're going to have to address in this draft because it was pretty rough watching the Super Bowl. And also, they traded away Joe Thuney, who was one of their best linemen. So, yeah, they're going to need some revamping with the tackle spots. So maybe they take a tackle at their spot. But you could also see, some of these guys trading out of the first round. We'll see. All right, so for the Eagles, I had them taking an edge rusher. They did lose Josh Sweat to the Cardinals. Milton Williams now went to the Patriots. So they do kind of need to revamp. Brandon Graham retired. So, yeah, I think they're going to address the defensive line one way or another in this draft. So I had them taking Mykel Williams, edge rusher out of Georgia. And they love taking Georgia players. Jalen Carter, obviously. So we'll see. But I could see that happening. Edge rusher, I think the Eagles will look to address here in the draft. But that's my mock draft. Let me know what you guys think. Again, it's very rough. It's not perfect, but we tried. We did it for the heck of it. Why not? So let me know what you guys think. How do you see the playoff teams doing in the draft tonight? Let me know in the comments. So before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button in the chat if you want to see me acknowledge any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. It makes the show more lively, more entertaining. Between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers, we appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day. So any contributions you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCPodcast.net. That is GSMCPodcast.net. So, when we come back from our next break, we will now shift over to the NBA. We will talk about the games from last night, how they all went down, some injury stuff to talk about, and all that when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, and for the third part of the show, we are now going to take a look at the games from last night around the NBA, a few game twos. So we'll start off with the Celtics and the Magic. So there was no Jason Tatum in this game, and it's amazing. This was the first playoff game that the Celtics played last night without Jason Tatum since, I believe, 2017. And I think Ian Eagle was, naming what the listing what the starting lineup was at the time. And it was, let me see if I can remember. So it was Avery Bradley, Al Horford. I don't think Jaylen Brown was in it. Are those the only two guys? I think those are the only two guys I remember. I'm trying to think of who else was. Either way, it's been a long time. It's since 2017. But Al Horford was in the starting lineup. Avery Bradley was there. I think Jaylen Brown was on the team, but I don't know if he was in the starting lineup. But either way, it's been a while. But the Celtics, they picked up the win last night. They picked up the win. Obviously, it was tougher without Tatum. But Jaylen Brown, speaking of Jaylen Brown, he really stepped up. He finished with a double-double. 36 points, 10 rebounds, had a good shooting night, was 12 of 19 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3, 7 of 8 from the free throw line. A lot of rebounds from the Celtics. 10 from Al Horford, 10 from Porzingis. We'll talk about him in a second. Porzingis also finished with double-double. Not a great shooting night. 10 of 14 from the free throw line, 5 of 14 from the field in general, 0 for 5 from 3. Derek White went 3 for 10 from 3. But he finished with 17 points. Drew Holiday finished with 11. And Peyton Pritchard off the bench, he finished with 14. And then for the Magic, Paulo Banchero, 32 points. Franz Wagner, 25 points. And then looking at both teams, they both shot around the same. Actually, the Magic shot a little bit better. 47.6% from the field. Celtics shot 45%. But both did not shoot great from 3. The Magic were 7 of 29 from 3. They just could not, hit big shots. And I feel like, they were still kind of hanging around. This game never really got so out of hand that the Magic couldn't come back and maybe pull off an upset. But it's just they could not make a shot when they really needed to. But yeah, they shot 24% from 3. Celtics shot 32% from 3. You figure if Tatum's able to come back for the series, that obviously will be better. But, we'll see what happens. But yeah, Celtics out-rebounded the Magic. And they go up 2-0. And I think, again, it's going to be tougher without Tatum. But I feel like they could get by this series without him. But, once you start getting into the later rounds in the playoffs, it's going to be tougher. And they play the winner of the Pistons or the Knicks. And, look, they've owned the Knicks. The Knicks were not able to win a game against them. I don't know. What was the... I know the Pistons actually did beat them at one point. And that was in the middle of their winning streak that they had, I believe. But, yeah, we'll see what happens with Tatum. But actually, I wanted to get into what happened with Porzingis. So Porzingis got elbowed in the face, and he was bleeding. Like, it was really bad. But they patched him up, and he was fine, of course, which is, good to see. But, yeah, it was an ugly scene on the court. But Joe Mazzulla, their head coach, he said in his press conference, I like watching him bleed on the court. I mean, now that's the quote that SportsCenter posted. Obviously, there was more context to it, but just kind of strange, saying that. But listen, Porzingis is a tough guy, and, finished the game. Like I said, they patched him up, and he was back out there. So, yeah, Celtics get the win. They're up 2-0. I mean, this series, to me, is over. But we'll see now with this shifting back to Orlando. Can the Magic get a game and get themselves back in the series? I don't think they really can, even with Tatum being out. It looked like maybe for a moment we could see an upset in the Cleveland-Miami game yesterday. Miami got to within, I think, 1 point late in the fourth quarter. I was paying more attention to the Celtics game, so I really wasn't watching that. But Miami got it to within a one-possession game. It was 101-99. Davion Mitchell hit a big three before that. Yeah, they went on a 5-0 run. Well, if you even want to call it a 5-0 run. But, yeah, they got themselves back in the game. He hit a couple of threes. A couple of big threes. And then Tyler Hero, had the two-pointer that had them down by 2. But then Donovan Mitchell, he made a couple of big shots down the stretch. When it was a one-possession game again, he hit a two-pointer. And then on Cleveland's next possession, he hit a 3 to put them up 7. And once that happened, that was basically it. Then I turned it off and focused my attention to the Warriors game. But looking at both teams, Miami shot the ball well, 52%. Cleveland shot 47%. almost 50% from three for Cleveland. For Miami, 35%. Leading scorers, Donovan Mitchell finished with 30 points. Darius Garland had 21. Max Strus had 14. Evan Mobley had 20. Off the bench, DeAndre Hunter had 12. For Miami, Tyler Hero had 33 points. He was solid. Davion Mitchell had 18. Bam Adebayo had a double-double, 14 rebounds, 11 points. Almost had a triple-double. He had 9 assists. Andrew Wiggins had 10. Highsmith had 17 off the bench. Jovic had 11 off the bench as well. But yeah, Miami just does not have enough to compete with Cleveland. And you figure you can get maybe you make a big move in the offseason. You get a star player, maybe Kevin Durant, someone. You'll be in a better position. But yeah, they just don't have enough. They don't have enough, unfortunately, to compete with Cleveland. But they haven't. It's not like they've embarrassed themselves. The other night they did lose by 20, but still, it was really because of a big fourth quarter by Cleveland. It kind of separated the gap even more, but yeah, it's just they don't have enough. They don't have enough. So now we get to the Warriors-Rockets game, and things may have turned in this series last night because of a major injury. So Jimmy Butler left the game early, landed on his backside. This was early in the game. He left the game with a pelvis contusion, and he was ruled out for the rest of the game. And the Warriors right now just don't have enough. You got Steph Curry. Other guys are going to have to step up, but I feel like if Jimmy Butler is out, for the rest of the series, he's getting an MRI today, but if he's out the rest of the series, I think the Rockets, I think this shifts now back in their favor, because he's a huge part of this team now. All the Warriors have done since Jimmy Butler has come over is win, and other guys are going to have to step up for the Warriors, but I don't know if they're going to be able to, because now everybody's just going to be focusing on Curry. Now, if you had Jimmy Butler out there, now it's like pick your poison, but now it's just all right. We got to take Steph Curry out of the game, and someone else try to beat us. And you saw that last night. Curry was doing the best he could. He was trying to, chuck up some threes to get them back in the game, but it just wasn't the case. But yeah, looking at the statistics from last night, best player last night was Jalen Green. Finished with 38 points, 13 to 25 from the field, 8 of 18 from three. He was on fire last night. Şengün, he finished with 17 points, 16 rebounds. He finished with a double-double. Dylan Brooks, he finished with 16 points. Easton off the bench finished with 14. Things got chippy in this game. Draymond Green, I was getting into it with the Rockets. I forget who he was getting into it with. Was it Jalen Green or East? I know someone threw a towel at somebody. Things got chippy. But for the Warriors, though, yeah, Steph Curry finished with 20 points. Not a great shooting night. 6 of 15 from the field. Moses Moody had 12. Jonathan Kuminga saw more minutes last night. He had 11 points off the bench. Quinn Post, he had 12 off the bench. But yeah, it's just they ended up losing 109 to 94. The Rockets, even with Jalen Green having this big game, they never really stomped on the Warriors. I mean, the Warriors still kind of hung around a little bit. I know it got to as much as 20 at certain points, but the Warriors did narrow the gap. But yeah, they ultimately lost by 15 here. But yeah, now this shifts back to Golden State. Again, if Jimmy Butler's out for an extended period of time, if he's out for the rest of the series, yeah, I think this might be the end for the Warriors. I really do believe that. But we'll see. We'll see. So, for the Celtics, they got a win without Tatum. Cleveland picked up a win. So both those teams are up 2-0 in their series. And the Rockets, they even up the series at 1 game apiece. Now, I believe I did say that. I said I believe the Rockets are going to even up the series, even before the game, when we were doing picks yesterday for the show. But yeah, wasn't hoping for Jimmy Butler to get hurt. So we'll see what happens. Again, he gets an MRI today. We'll see what the update is, and how long he's going to be out if he misses any time at all. Now, I think the next time they play is Saturday, so hopefully it's not too serious. But yeah, it looked pretty bad when he landed on his backside, how he did. But let me know what you guys think about the games from last night. So we are going to take our next break, and then when we come back, we will discuss the games for tonight. We will preview them: Pistons, Knicks, Grizzlies, Thunder, and then the last one. What's the other one? There's three on tonight. Nuggets, Clippers, which is a very good series. So we'll get into all of that when we come back from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we are now going to preview the games tonight in the NBA playoffs. I will give you my picks for the games tonight. Mainly, we're going to talk about the Knicks and the Pistons. Because, I'm still bitter from my first playoff game experience ending the way it did the other night. This is a big game for the Knicks. And I feel like if they go down 2-1, I'm not saying the series is over, but they're going to really have their backs against the wall. And, I mean, depending on how they lose tonight, if they do lose, that'll really, tell me where the series is going to go. But guys are going to have to step up. The Pistons, they're getting contributions from Tobias Harris. You saw Dennis Schroeder get 20 points off the bench the other night. Cade Cunningham, found his rhythm. After, his playoff debut was not horrible. He still, finished with a decent stat line. But game 2, he was a lot better. For the Knicks, Karl Anthony Towns got off to a good start, but, 3 quarters of the game, he was a no-show after that. Which, there's a lot of blame going around, whether it's coaching, Jalen Brunson not getting him the ball. It's just, it's a lot. Mikal Bridges, he got off to a good start, and then he couldn't hit an open 3. Josh Hart wasn't great. OG Anunoby, those guys need to step up. And Jalen Brunson has to get them the ball as well, because I know a lot of people are saying that, look, it's Brunson playing a 1v5. Get your guys involved. And also, for the Knicks off the bench, Cameron Payne, he sparked that comeback in game 1, and then he didn't finish with anything in game 2. Really, nobody on the bench did anything. So this is a big game. This is really going to tell us how this series is going to go, I feel. Even if the Knicks lose tonight, again, the series is not over. But this is a very important game. And the Pistons are going to be hosting a playoff game for the first time in a while. So, that place is going to be going nuts. How are they going to respond? before this series started, we talked about how this series is going to be going back and forth. And now, does this shift back over to the Knicks? Do the Knicks get a win tonight? We will see. But, like I said, the key is the other guys besides Brunson. Who is going to be that other guy that is going to step up and be consistent throughout the whole game and not miss open shots, not completely disappear? Karl Anthony Towns, I'm looking to him because there are a lot of Knicks fans out there that are not happy with him right now. They're also not happy. Well, they're not happy in general, but they're not happy with him. They're not happy with Mikal Bridges, and I'm really curious to see what happens. I would be curious to see what would happen if. Now, I don't want this to happen. If the Knicks end up losing the series, does that mean that Tom Thibodeau is done as the head coach? Because you really started to hear that before the playoffs, that could Tibbs lose his job? I hope not. I think Tibbs is a good coach. But I forget what I was listening to, and, it's kind of true. He's a defensive-minded head coach, but a lot of these guys are not playing great defense. That's why everybody loved last year's team. Because they were gritty, they played defense. This Knicks team doesn't have that same feel to it. But we'll see what happens tonight. If they lose tonight, then their backs are going to be against the wall. So for the other two games, for the Grizzlies and the Thunder, the Thunder right now are just rolling. Game two's loss for the Grizzlies was not as bad as Game 1, but the Thunder are just so much better. They're one of the deepest teams in the NBA. They could, just fly all the way to the finals. We'll see what happens in the later rounds, in the second round and in the Western Conference Finals, who they match up against. They still got to go out there and prove it. But, it's the gap is wide between these two teams. And I don't think the Grizzlies are a bad team. But it just shows you how much better the Thunder are. And I think this is going to be a clean sweep. I didn't say I'm going to take the Knicks tonight, but I'm taking the Thunder tonight. I think it's a clean sweep. I think they get to 3-0, and then, now, the series is back in Memphis, so you never know. But the way it's going, I think Memphis might have packed it in, and I think the Thunder win in 4 games. And then you probably got the best game of the day, and that's Clippers-Nuggets. That series is going to go back and forth as well. Game 1, Nuggets win a close one. Game 2, Kawhi Leonard was unbelievable. A vintage Kawhi Leonard performance in the postseason. And, it's interesting because we talked about him recently this week in our production meeting and how he'll be remembered. And it's amazing how his career has gone, because when he first came onto the scene, he's with the Spurs, won Finals MVP, played really well. Then, of course, gets traded to Toronto, wins the Finals, and he was unbelievable in that. He hit one of the, most memorable buzzer beaters in NBA history against the Sixers. And, they knocked off the Warriors. Now, the Warriors, of course, were dealing with injuries. Kevin Durant ruptured his Achilles in the finals. Klay Thompson also got hurt. So, if the Warriors were at full strength, I don't know if the Raptors win. But they did. And then he ended up going to the Clippers after that. But, a lot of negativity around Kawhi with the load management and the injuries. But you see that Kawhi is still that guy. When you see performances like that the other day, he's still that guy. Now, I think for a lot of players, like Kawhi is a 2-time NBA champion. And let's say the Clippers go on and they win another championship with him leading the charge. There was a little bit of a disagreement, but I do think, you're gonna look back at Kawhi and say, man, he was unbelievable. You're not really gonna say, well, he was. I mean, I guess you will, but you're more gonna. I think people are gonna focus more on the good rather than the bad if he wins another championship. If he doesn't, then you'll probably say, because it's been a while. I mean, that was back in what was it, 2019? 2018, 2019 is when the Raptors won. So yeah, that was a long time ago. So, but if Kawhi can finally, get back to a finals and maybe win it, maybe people look at him in a different light. And, James Harden would be happy too, because, Harden's another guy that, I mean, at least Kawhi has 2 rings. I mean, James Harden doesn't have a ring. He would like to win one. So, but this series is, we still got a long way to go before that. But, that was just something I wanted to bring up. But yeah, Kawhi is a great player when he's healthy. And he's healthy right now, and he's playing really well. This is going to be a back-and-forth series. This is back in L.A. Look, I took the Nuggets to win in 7. I'm going to say it's going to be another close game. I'm going to say the Nuggets win tonight. It's going to be a close game. Say they win. They go up 2-1. Having said all that stuff about Kawhi. But yeah, this is a very good series. What we're watching right now, it's a really good series. So, we'll see what we'll see what Westbrook does tonight, if he does anything crazy. But probably going to miss some of that game because I'm going to be, focusing in on the draft. But yeah, so I got the Knicks, the Thunder, and the Nuggets winning tonight. Let me know what you guys think, though. Who do you think wins these matchups tonight? Let me know in the comments. So those are the games tonight. We'll recap them tomorrow, and then tomorrow you got the game 3s. Celtics play tomorrow. The Pacers and the Bucks play tomorrow. That series now shifts back to Milwaukee. The Lakers and the Timberwolves then play late. That game I'm really going to be locked in on. That's a big game 3. But yeah, we are moving right along here in the first round of the playoffs. And yeah, draft is tonight, and then of course carries into the weekend. You got, day 2 on Friday, day 3 Saturday. So I think it's, rounds 2 through 3 are Friday, and then you got rounds 4 through 7 are Saturday, and that goes on for a while, 4 through 7. But yeah, it's a big weekend in sports. So when we come back from our final break of the show, we are going to talk about baseball a little bit. We'll talk about the other New York team, not this one. We are going to talk about the New York Mets. They are playing really good baseball. They've won 7 straight. They're in first place. They actually hold the best record in the majors. I wanted to just fix the segment title so everything was capital. But yeah, they've won 7 straight games, coming off of a great homestand. And we'll kind of just talk about them and, how they've been doing. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. All right, and we are back. Excuse me. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Sports Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to talk about the Mets as they currently hold the best record in baseball. They're coming off of a very good homestand. They went 7-0. They swept the Cardinals, and they swept a division rival in the Philadelphia Phillies, who have now lost 4 in a row because of that. But yes, they are currently 18-7, and 8-2 in their last 10 games. They have one of the best run differentials in the majors at 36, or plus 36, and the only team that's better is the Cubs, who are at plus 43, and they're coming off of a series sweep of the Dodgers. Now, I did put the Mets at 4 in my power rankings, and look, I think being at 4 is not bad. You're still one of the best teams in the majors, but now they have the best record in baseball, and you got guys in their lineup that are producing. Some guys aren't, but they'll get it going. Pete Alonso has looked really good this year. Francisco Lindor, he's batting over 300 right now. I mean, he's gotten off to a much better start than he did last year. I mean, last year he was still very good, but he started off slow. But right now he's batting over 300. He's got 5 homers, 14 RBIs, and 869 OPS. And then Pete Alonso, he's batting 341 on the season. 341. He's got an 1100 OPS. He's got 6 homers, 26 RBIs on the year. And look, they're doing it without Juan Soto, producing. I mean, he drove in a couple of runs, this past series, and he's looking better. But, right now he's not putting up Juan Soto numbers. Anthony in the chat, what's going on? He says, how's it going today? Things are going good. We're getting ready for the draft. Big weekend coming up with that, the NBA playoffs, baseball. And if you're not aware, Anthony, make sure to tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow is going to be my last show hosting the GSMC Sports Podcast. So make sure to tune in. You've been a regular for a while now. But tomorrow, if you're not aware, tomorrow is going to be my last show. So make sure to tune in. But I wanted to get back to the Mets. But you look at some of these batting averages, though. Like Brandon Nimmo's batting under 200. Mark Vientos has gotten off to a brutal start. Brett Beatty actually hit a home run yesterday. But, yeah, I mean, he hasn't been great. They're, hoping Jeff McNeil gets back soon. They haven't had Francisco Alvarez. They're missing guys, the Mets. And they're still doing this, without a lot of the guys producing in the lineup. But it's also because their pitching has been very good. Outside of maybe Edwin Diaz, their pitching has been really good. They are the best in baseball when it comes to team ERA. Their pitching is pitching to a 2.34 ERA, which is, again, the best in the majors. That's a big part of it. And I've said it. Their bullpen, has kind of been a weakness of the team for a while, but it's a strength. It's a strength. And they might have to go out and maybe get somebody else to, address the closer role. But, look, you got to like where the Mets are at right now. And right now they got a 5-game cushion on the Phillies. The Marlins and the Nationals are 6.5 games back. The Braves are starting to play better. They're now 7.5 games back. They're 10-14, but, compared to where they were at, they still got some ground to make up, but, the way they were looking, you're like, man, are they going to finish with that bad of a record this year, the way things are going? But they got to get healthy as well. Also, Spencer Strider got hurt again, which is not good. Anthony in the chat, a couple of things. With his last 2 performances, do you think it affects the trade value for Sandy and what Miami can actually get for him, or his last 2 performances don't really matter? It's still early. It's still early. I mean, let's see where we're at when we get more towards the trade deadline. I think there's still teams, that are going to want to trade for him, because there's teams that are always going to need pitching. He also said, because I'm reading where reports on MLB trade rumors and hearing it from ESPN and MLB Network that they're probably going to trade him by the end of May. We'll have to wait and see. But he is definitely going to be someone that I think we could see getting dealt at the deadline. But I think, with the the recent performances that he's had. Look, I mean, he's coming back from a major injury, right? So, obviously, yeah, it might not be great in the beginning, but, let's see what happens next year. Let's see where he ends up. But he is someone that is going to be a popular trade candidate. But, I mean, you look at the Marlins. I mean, 11-13, they're not doing horrible. I mean, their run differential is not great, but, they're 11-13. They're around 500. Look, they made the playoffs a couple years ago. Maybe they find a way to sneak in and be a wild card team. No, I don't think that. I don't think it's going to happen. But right now, they're in a position where they're not thinking about that at the moment. So, yeah, but the Mets, they're looking good. They're 12-1 at home this year in general. I mean, that is very impressive. I mean, look at what happened last year, how they started off. I mean, they are a good team. They are a good team. And also, you look at some of the injuries that they have to the starting rotation. Kodai Senga has gotten off to a great start. Griffin Canning has looked good. Look, if they add a starting pitcher to that rotation at the trade deadline, I mean, they still need to add a couple of pieces, like I said. Maybe a starter, maybe another bat. But they're looking good. They're looking good. I don't think there's really... I don't think you can complain about anything. I mean, yeah, you want to see guys do a little bit better in the lineup. Nimmo, Vientos. I mean, obviously you want to see Soto batting better than 230, but they're going to get it going. Well, Soto I know is going to get it going. I don't know, and Nimmo. I don't know about Vientos. Vientos last year, he was great, but, we got to see the consistency. And, I mean, I think he's a better player than 175. So, we'll see. But... yeah, I mean, the Mets, good position right now. They're in a good position. Both New York teams are in first place. Mets currently hold the best record in baseball. So, we'll see if they can keep it up. Anthony also says, I don't know what it is. I think by the deadline we're going to be 12 games under. Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Look, it's only April, or we're about to be in May. We see some of these teams with, the Giants have gotten off to a good start. I mean, I don't really know what they are going to be when we get to, we get more towards the summer. There are teams that are going to start to, kind of come back down to earth and, show who they really are. I mean, you can't really, evaluate a baseball team after 1 month. I mean, you could talk about how, teams have gotten off to good starts or poor starts, but once you get, July, August, then you're like, okay, you kind of have a good idea of where these teams are at. And he's also, Anthony, can you explain to me what is happening with Texas? Is the inconsistency with their pitching, or is it more the offense that's hurting them? Even though they've been playing well, they've gone into extras. Yeah, I mean, I haven't really been paying attention. I mean, I'm keeping up with the standings. Right now, they're 14-10. I mean, their run differential is not great. I mean, they've only put up 77 runs, which is not good. That's like, yeah, they got the same amount of runs scored as the Rockies. Oh, actually, no, they don't. 6 more runs scored than the Rockies, which still isn't great. Right now, well, let's see. Let's look at where they're at, the Rangers. So, let's look at their pitching. So, right now, the Rangers are 6th in ERA. They are 4th in WHIP. Opponent's batting average, they're 7th. So their pitching is good. I mean, but if you look at their hitting, I mean, let's look at the batting average. Batting average, they're 24th. Home runs, they are, where are they? They're 12th. RBIs, they're 27th. On base percentage, they're 28th. They got a 278 on base percentage. Slugging, they are 23rd. OPS, they are 25th. So it's kind of the inconsistency with the lineup. The problem is the lineup. They're not scoring runs, but their pitching's been good, so it's kind of equaled out. But they're in first place right now. So, you want to see guys get it going more. I know Jock Peterson, who they brought in, he's gotten off to a bad start. But yeah, so I guess when you look at the Rangers and their stats, it's the lineup. The lineup is not producing the way they're hoping, and they got a good team. Look, this is the team that won the World Series a couple years ago. Last year I think what they finished with 78 wins. But you got a healthy Jacob deGrom, you got Eovaldi, so the pitching is good, but the lineup's got to get it going, and you got Bruce Bochy there still, so still got to respect this team. But yeah, they're in first place. But you definitely want to see this team start to pick it up a little bit offensively. Because what's funny is you look at they're 14-10, but I think their expected win loss total is 10-14 right now. But they're also at home. They're playing really well. They're 10-3 at home. They're 4-7 on the road. 5-8 against teams over 500. But we'll see. Right now, they're 1 game up on the Astros and the Mariners. They're 2.5 games up on the Angels, and then they're 3 games up on the A's. And the A's got some young players to be excited about. They brought up Nick Kurtz yesterday, and he had an RBI single, I think in his first at bat. Yeah, there's that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the show for today. Anthony, appreciate the comments. Make sure to check out all the other shows on the network throughout the day. Make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to our videos, to our YouTube channels, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure to check us out on there if you want to listen to us on the go. And yeah, tomorrow is going to be the last show. Tomorrow is going to be the last show. That's it. That does not mean though that I'm going to disappear. We'll talk more about that tomorrow towards the end of the last show. But yeah, we're almost at the finish line, which it's sad, but it's also exciting with what I am trying to plan, what I have planned coming up on the horizon. So make sure to tune in tomorrow for the last show. We're going to talk draft, NBA, and I'm trying to have something planned for the final segment. I did bring it up briefly, but yeah, that's tomorrow's the last show, as I keep saying it. So, as always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off from the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the draft. Enjoy the playoff games tonight. And I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit.